Hello again. This is part 2 of the Outstanding Black Innovators series dedicated to bringing awareness about African American involvement in the development of engineering and technology, past and present. This segment highlights two people in aviation, Bessie Coleman and Christine Darden, two outstanding black women in aviation history. Now, we will first look at Bessie Coleman, an outstanding aviator and an inspiration for all who have aspirations to become involved in this field. So, sit back, relax, and partake in this biography of a black woman who stood her own ground during difficult times and said no to bigotry and racism. Oh, and don't forget to hit the big thumbs up and subscribe keys so that we can send updates as the series is expanded, and to let us know that we're reaching out to as many people as possible, especially Black and Latino students, but meant for all students as well. And by all means, educators have permission to use this material as long as it's for educational purposes and not for profit. This is an effort to educate our youth. No money is made from this presentation. Just call it my legacy toward educating my grandchildren, my extended family, and hopefully yours too, while I'm able. So please support us and subscribe. Bessie Coleman, 1892 to 1926. Bessie Coleman was an early American aviator. As a child, she always wanted to fly, watching early aircraft from airships or zeppelins to heavier-than-air aircraft. She used to listen to her brothers, who served in France during World War I, who would tease her about how France allowed females to learn to fly. When she was old enough, she went to several American flight schools, only to be turned down for being a black woman. Finally, she decided to travel to France, where they welcomed her with open arms. After learning French and intensive flight training, she earned her international pilot's license from Fédération Aéronautique Internationale on June 15, 1921. She was the first black person, not the first black woman, to receive this license, and she was considered by some to be better than most American aviators of the time. Returning to Texas, she put on several air shows after finally being able to purchase her own aircraft, an old Jenny, or JN-4 plane. She was most famous for doing aerobatics, like Immelmans or Cuban eights, in other words, flying figure eights in the air, to the amazement of her fans. Now here's where the study of history really gets interesting for me. Now, there are basically two types of information that you use in research of people: obtaining primary sources or secondary sources, in other words, out of books and papers. Too much of our history is lost because records get lost, people pass away, and no one attempts to preserve records. Primary history is basically getting it from the source of relatives, friends, and people who were eyewitnesses to the events of the time. In this case, I was able to interview one of her nephews, and I discovered that she was a very dynamic woman who didn't accept segregation without a fight. She would insist to promoters that there would be only one entrance for both blacks and whites rather than separate entrances, or she'd refuse to fly, to which they complied. She was a vibrant, well-loved person who was fond of showing movies of her aerobatic exploits in black churches and other gatherings. Unfortunately, she was killed in a plane crash while riding with a mechanic where the plane flipped and she fell out of the open cockpit to her death in 1926. None other than Ida B. Wells, the famous black activist of the time, performed her funeral in 1926. Now you might ask, was she an engineer in the sense that we know it today? Was she an innovator? Well, for me, the answer is yes to the former and absolutely to the latter. When you consider that the famous Thomas Edison, the Wizard of Menlo Park, only had a 6th grade education, yet is considered an innovator without question, then it only stands to reason that Ms. Bessie Coleman certainly belongs among the ranks of our outstanding innovators of the past. And now we turn to an outstanding innovator in mathematics and aerospace engineering, Dr. Kathlene J, mathematician, aerospace engineer, 1942 to the present. Dr. Kathlene J is a mathematician and aerospace engineer who worked for NASA Langley, Virginia's research programs, specializing in research on supersonic aircraft design and the study of sonic booms. Now, I just want to mention at this time that I had a chance to talk with Dr. Darden back in the 90s, and she was most gracious, and even with her busy schedule, she found time to converse with me about her work at NASA. She gave me this picture, which indicates basically it's showing a model, in this case a rocket aircraft, where they use it, test it in wind tunnels for supersonic test speeds and modeling. Now, I want to take this time to explain for some of our young students what supersonic and sonic booms are. The term supersonic describes an aircraft that is able to fly faster than the speed of sound, which is 343 meters per second, or 767.269 miles per hour. You see, a plane is subsonic at any speed below this threshold or limit. Now, when an aircraft exceeds this speed, then the air doesn't have time to get out of the way, if you will. And it creates a pressure wave in front of it, a shock wave, which, when reaches the ground, sounds like a boom or distant explosion. Now, needless to say, this disturbs both people and animals who hear and feel this sonic boom, and planes traveling over the U.S. are thus restricted to fly at these supersonic speeds because of it. Remember, for those who are old enough, the Concorde, that was a supersonic transport plane, or an SST, and they not only restricted that flight, but they halted all SST flights of the Concorde back in the early 2000s. Now, Dr. Darden's research involved these problems, where she both worked to minimize these anomalies and to streamline aircraft wings to mitigate this effect. She also is one of the highest-ranking engineers who did extensive research on rocket-propelled aircraft capable of escaping the Earth's atmosphere and landing on the other side of the Earth within a few hours. She is also one of the women in the book Hidden Figures, highlighting the computer's many achievements for the space program. Computers in those days were what they called women who performed difficult and complex mathematical calculations for determining ballistic flight trajectories, especially for vehicular escape and re-entry velocities from point to point. So, when you students are doing your homework thinking that it's too hard, and you want to quit before you're done to watch TV or get on social media, think of Dr. Kathlene J and what she had to endure to achieve success in this field. And there you have it. Two outstanding innovators in aviation history, both past and present. Now, for those older students, more advanced students, I'd like to touch a little bit on aviation and why planes fly. Why do planes fly? This is a model of an Air Force NASA supersonic transport. All the aerodynamics is included. A lot of engineering went into this. Now, why do planes fly? Let's look into that. Now, some of this is probably advanced for some of the younger students. That's okay. Just listen and observe and learn. Some of the equations that I'm about to show you are probably above many of the younger students, but I think that you'll get the picture on why it's important for studying math and science, physics, doing your homework. Okay? It's important because if you don't understand the basics, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, fractions, then it's going to be pretty difficult to grasp the concepts of what I'm about to show you. So here goes. How do planes fly? Planes fly because they have wings. This is sort of what's called a free body diagram of a cross-section of a wing. This view is as if you were looking at it from the tip and into the side of the aircraft. Now, as I said before, some of this is rather advanced, so just absorb what you can of the theory, and I promise you that I'll make it as simple as possible. One theory is the longer path theory, based on what is called the Bernoulli principle, which states that the air that passes over the wing has a lower pressure on the wing than the air passing below the wing. This is based on the principle that a fluid, in this case air, reduces in pressure as it increases in velocity, or airspeed in this case. Rho sub A is the bottom of the wing, and rho sub B is the top of the wing. Now the difference in pressure, as described in these simple equations, is what causes the wing, and thus the plane, to lift, so to speak. Pressure rho sub A is greater than rho sub B, as you can see here. Now, I just used the Greek symbol rho merely out of habit, so you could use any letter convenient for you as long as you understand the basic concepts. So here we show that rho A, or rho sub A, is greater than rho sub B as an inequality, and here we show delta rho, or the difference in pressure, also called the resultant pressure, in equation form. The same is shown in vector notation of sorts here, which shows that the result creates lift that is needed to lift the plane and keep it aloft or in the air. Now, there are those who theorize that this effect incorrectly represents the theory of lift. What I'm showing you here is only part, but an essential part, of the principle of flight, so you will begin to grasp the concept in an easy form. Later, in another part, I'll demonstrate how house roofs can literally be lifted off of houses because of this effect during hurricanes. But that's enough for now. Now, we'll be having more of this kind of content as we go through this, so please stay tuned, and we'll see you for part 3 of the series. So I'll see you later. Oh, and as usual, please don't forget to hit the like button or the thumbs up and subscribe. Take care.